There we go. Let's hope for the best on that. So we're beginning. This is meeting 2 of our empathy design team. And we just did our check-ins and felt how everybody heard how everybody was feeling. And now we wanted to share those questions. Like we had these on-arrival questions, everybody was jotting down. And the question was sort of a meta question. What questions should we ask at the beginning of the meeting? Like one question that people can work on and write. And last time we asked, why are you taking this training? Just so we could find out where everybody is. So we can just go down the list and we're going to share and try to, just quickly, we just want a minute or so for each person to share their questions. And I'll restart the timer. So the first one, my first question was, how do you feel right now? And that's what we actually did. We wanted to, and the reason for that is since empathy means feeling into, we want to kind of tap into our felt experience. Number 2 was, why are you taking this training? So we want to know, what are people's motivations and needs? Number 3 was, what are personal or social problems, pains, that you would like to address with empathy? So that's always a good motivation if we can tap into, struggles and problems people have. So it'd be good to, have, kind of gather those so we can address them in, during the meetings. And what are you wanting to know about empathy? So what are you curious about? Like I was hearing, curiosity about the definition. What do we even mean by it? And again, those are something that we could address. And what is meaningful personal experience you had with empathy? So, kind of the positive experiences. So that was my questions and the why I chose those questions. And we want to go down the list here. Celia, if you'd like to share.
Sure. I said, how are you feeling? And the interesting difference for that, I realized over the years that I asked this question is when I ask, how do you feel? It feels like now they have to have a task, like to do. And how are you is more like sitting and contemplating. So I thought it was a slight difference in words, that sometimes words really bring us in a different area. So I thought, wow, just feel it for yourself, feel the difference if you ask for yourself, how do I feel or how am I feeling? And yeah, maybe that is a nice one. The other one is, of course, also linking to what are your expectations and wishes and dreams and concerns, but specifically maybe for today, for this meeting. I don't know if, the topic is the next 2 chapters from the book. So, what kind of expectations you have about that. And I don't know if I typed the third one already, but that was it. Let me see.
Yeah, I just
had the
see
one
2
also,
here.
is there anything you want us to know for you for today, for now? Like if you have a headache, if you're not sitting well, like you have your back pain, like Varsha said, that those things are out of the way so that we know it. And yeah, those are my first ones.
Okay, so I wrote that one in. It wasn't there, so I wrote it in for you. Is there something you would like us to know? Okay, Bill, you're next on.
I thought we did the how we're feeling, and then what were the questions? Which one do you want me to answer?
Yeah, it was what questions did you write down? What questions did you have, and why did you ask those?
Sure. Okay. So the 2 questions is Edwin and I have, service of fair disclosure, had a discussion about this, but what we were talking, and what I was thinking about is providing enough structure so that we recognize it as empathy, yet giving freedom and creative license so that people can make it their own at the same time. And so one of the things that, we would do when we wanted to do design curriculum is start from the end goal. So the question is to ask that the 2 questions is that what do you want to get out of each of these trainings? In other words, if we take this empathy to the listening, or if we apply it to other areas, what do people want to get out? Now, I generalized it into two things. This is not definitive. It can be, messed with. One is emotional, that you feel heard and that you feel a greater sense of community. That should be something you feel after this. And number two is that you should have an expansion of skills. There should be some rational expansion. And so those are the two things that I consider and would like to propose as threads. There can be others, or they can be amended, for all the classes. So whatever class you're taking or whatever we do, you feel heard, and you also feel that there's a reason for doing it. You learn something. Okay.
So that's your question, kind of expanding on that. So okay, thanks. Let's go to Varsha. You're next.
Oh, I'm just wondering what to answer. Expectation was similar to William. Like creating a step-by-step process for the participant to comprehend what is empathy, and develop the skill of listening or understanding others. And I want to do this through movement, dance, whatever, using some of the elements of the dance form that I practice. So
could you say the first one again? How do we create a step-by-step what?
Step-by-step process of understanding empathy.
Okay.
For people who I take the workshop, like for the participants. How do I give this experience of step-by-step? How do I take the audience through a step-by-step process of transforming into an empathic being?
Okay, so you have two questions. How do we create a step-by-step of understanding empathy, and how do we create a step-by-step process of becoming an empathic being?
It's the same, through movement. Through movement, dance, or elements of Bharatanatyam. You can write BN, Bharatanatyam. BHARATA. Bharata, another word is Natyam, NATYAM. And what is the next question?
That was it, just what questions you would ask at the beginning of the meeting. So we just want the question itself and why you're asking it.
Oh, this is the umbrella question. So this is the umbrella question, like the motivation question, and that would again derive specific questions for each class to arrive at the umbrella question.
Okay, so you're saying have specific questions at each class and then sort of a general question.
Yes.
Okay.
So the specific questions will lead to the umbrella question.
Okay, we're getting a little background sound there for...
But I don't have any option. My house is... in the backyard, children are playing. And in the front, there's this main road. So I don't know where to sit.
Oh, that was yours? Okay. Yeah, so that's fine. If just when people are not speaking, they can always mute for background sounds. Okay, so that was 2.5 minutes. And we just wanted... This is just like a quick check-in on questions. So, Bob, did you have a question?
For me, I want to gain skills so I can use my empathy tent pop-up wisely. And I think that skill will cover all my life so I can be empathic in every aspect of life.
So the idea for this question was what question can we ask at the beginning of the meeting that everybody can write on and kind of brainstorm on? So would it be like, how do we gain skills, empathy skills? Would that be like the question you would want to ask?
I believe the course will help me get those skills. The question is, how will I use those skills?
Oh, okay. So how do we use our empathy skills? Mm-hmm. Would that be kind of what your question is? Like, how do we use our empathy skills?
I feel fully heard.
Okay. Okay, great.
Edwin,
Uh-huh.
For today's meeting, I have a different question because that question arrived from my umbrella question.
Okay, do you want to just write it in there? And
Yeah, I've written it.
okay. Do you want to just quickly say
yeah.
it then?
Yeah.
Just the question. This is just that we want like maximum 2 minutes just to share our questions, just trying to keep us on track.
What it means to be relatable and common element between two people to have common feeling to arrive to the understanding of empathy.
Okay.
It means to be relatable.
Okay, great. We got that written there. So we're just gathering these. So Peter, do you want to share yours?
For mine, I just I took some. I altered some of the questions I asked my social work students, and that I've done in other empathy trainings. So the first one is: can you remember a time where you were too tired, overworked, stressed, to get angry about something that you normally get angry about? And then, can you remember a time where you're too tired, overworked, stressed to get happy about something that you get happy about? How much are we in control of our emotions and willingness to be in the moment? And how much are we in control of another's emotions and their willingness to be in a moment? How can we deal with the question of willingness in the moment? Why is it important to develop willingness or rapport with an individual or yourself? Why does it matter if we have empathy? What does it look like to reach your goals with empathy? What does it look like to reach your goals without empathy? And when would you be willing to not try empathy, and why?
Okay.
A bunch of practice questions that I imagine leading to a bigger discussion at the beginning of a lesson, or leading to kind of a topic that I'd like to discuss.
Great. So yeah, so we're going to be just gathering all these questions, and next week we'll pick one of these to write on as we arrive and to share. So this was sort of a meta question that we were starting with here. So the next thing, I thought we could go around and maybe just share kind of a review. How are we doing on time? Oh, it's 3:30. So maybe we could, I don't want to be sure we have enough time for everything. Yeah, just review the last meeting. How did that go for everyone? We just take maybe 5 minutes to say, like, we had the last meeting. Is there any kind of feedback on that last meeting? And I'll set the timer here for 5 minutes.
Well, I'll just jump in quickly. I thought everybody was impressed. I think that generally, as I remember people's reactions, it exceeded expectations. I think as far as we're talking about emotionally, people felt heard. And, I don't know what specific skills individuals may have learned, but I think we kind of laid the groundwork for a framework to, move forward. So that was my impression. Very positive first meeting. Next.
My impression, Celia here, was also that everybody liked it very much, including me, of course. That's what I was wondering, because we really listened to each other and let each other speak and then gave the feedback. The difference with really empathetic listening at the same time, that is the person is speaking. So, and I don't know how that would look like on a Zoom meeting. So that was, I thought afterwards, wow, that is interesting. That's the difference. How I do it normally in life and how it works here on internet. But I thought, and I'm glad to see everybody back. That is really fabulous. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
Well, I was struck by just, how easy and flowing the information went, how us creating the information really is possible through reflecting back and really thinking about what we've read. So it was a much easier creation process than I expected. And even at the end, it seemed like there was almost, other questions being asked and you know, we didn't get to quite finish through that question. And maybe now we can explore that more, or we can move on to different stuff. So I think it was a very strong start. So.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Yep, please.
From after, I'm going to share my experience after the first session. So my husband peeked in. He came half an hour, 15 minutes early, and he was listening to our conversation. So that prompted our discussion following during the weekends. So I had a revelation that in order to be empathic, there has to be a common connection to relate. If this is not there, then there has to be a common feeling if there is no common experience. Meaning, what I'm trying to say, there has to be some common element for two different people to come together to listen to each other. So, relatable.
So what I'm hearing is you had an insight that when people come together, there has to be some sense of commonality for that,
Yes.
for empathy to happen.
Yeah, and if there is no commonality, there has to be some relatability. Meaning, if there are no two similar experiences, but if there is no two same experience, but there has to be some context to the experience that could make relatable. You know, if not common.
So there has to be some way of coming towards a common experience, some way of moving towards that commonality.
Yes, commonality, like intersection. I realized that my husband didn't have right understanding about empathy. I realized that he was mixing empathy with sympathy and compassion. So, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you had a lot of lessons from there, and one of them with your husband was sort of confusing empathy and sympathy is kind of one of the problems.
And compassion.
And compassion.
Yeah, and compassion. I felt that he's seeing compassion as empathy. And when I was telling him that there has to be some relatability or some common experience, he didn't have the right understanding what it meant to be relatability. You know, what it means to relate. He then started Googling what it means to relate and all that. So, although, yeah, and while discussing with him, my husband brought up the idea of having a common feeling, like emotion feeling, which was a revelation for me. So, yeah, he gave some different examples where there was no common, like he gave me example. If you see,
can I just interrupt real quick? Sorry about this. I just want to set 5 minutes for this because this kind of deeper discussion, we'd like to do it with empathic listening. So that you can bring this up, but we'll do it within the empathic listening process. You know, because that's, we don't want to get too much into, you know, each of us sharing. So just quickly from Bob, was there anything you wanted to add?
I just want to echo Celia and Bill that I'm glad we're all back, and what a great group to be a part of.
Okay. Great. Then we're going to go. I did want to, so what I wanted to do was just share some technical information and then give an overview of chapter 3 and 4, and then we can start doing the empathic listening. So the technical thing I wanted to show is how to use the Listening Well website, and I'm going to share that now. Just a second here. And we can, I'm just going to give sort of an initial primer on how to do this. So this is the Listening Well website. And I've given just a quick overview. So this is more the technical stuff, you know, for us working together. That there's the sidebar here that has the different chapters. So we can go through and there's an outline of the different chapters, just like a, you know, not something where we break the copyright. They didn't want to, it's just like a little outline of what this will take a second to come up. You know, the chapter title, a little bit, you know, of info on each one. I was going to show this last time. The chapter 1, wait a minute, this is was on perspective taking, so I had some graphics here. So these are, you know, all the chapters along the sides here. I created a participant. I hope this is all coming across. So each of you has your own web page here that you can access. There's a section on sessions. So Bill Miller has a workshop, a 3-session workshop that he gave us his outline to, and he said we could use. So you can kind of look at this at some point. You know, it's like a basic. It's a 3-day adult, not a 3-day, a 3-session adult education course that he holds on empathic listening, and so he gave us the material to use if we want. There's a folder here for sorting, you know, just for all kinds of, you know, odd topics that haven't been sorted. Each team has its own meeting, so every meeting has a web page, and we can kind of flesh these out. And you know, we're team 1. We can go into team 2. This is a test page where you can test out creating pages. I'm going to give a little intro, like how you edit and test pages. We have a toolkit folder here, and each of the activities that we create is, we can create a web page for it. And like this is the web page I'm creating for the on arrival question. You know, here's the goal of the on arrival question. Here are questions. So all the questions you created, you know, we'll put in here. So it'll become part of this on arrival question activity. And I don't know if anybody else created an activity. That was the assignment for the week. This is Empathy Heart. This is one that Bob did. And so he had an activity, and I placed it here, you know, and created a page for it. So it's good to have just a 1 or 2 word topic, you know, name for your activity. So to actually under here we can add everyone. There's a 6 permissions. You can enable permissions. So I did add Varsha and Bob so far, and that's Bill. So I'll add Peter and Celia, and then you'll have permissions to edit. If you have a Google Plus email account, you'll be able to just go to the page and edit. Otherwise, you'll be sent the link, and you have to use that link to be able to edit. So, and I can show you how to edit. And we can actually practice this maybe, you know, next time. So to edit, it's quite simple. When you have permission to edit, you'll see this little toolbar here. And if you don't see that, it means, you know, you haven't logged in or you're not using the right link. And so this one here, there's only 2 things we really need to know. One is to edit a page. You click here, it loads the editor, and then you can type here, and you can save, and that's it. So so you can go in and edit your own page, you know, update your pages, whatever. For example, Bill, you know, he had emailed me some of the stuff he had done, and I put it into the page, you know, onto his page, and he had a little graphic, you know, of his empathic listening, his mind map. So we just added it there. So once we kind of learn all these skills, you're able to, you know, kind of work in here and just add it by yourself. The other thing besides editing a page is to create a page. So with these 2 skills, you can pretty much do, you know, 80% of the basics. So we can say test 2, create a page called test 2. And we put it, you can choose where you want it to be located. And I want to put it into I'll just put it into the test folder. So I'm putting here where I want it to go. I say create page.
Is this page visible only to all of us, or it's visible to the public?
It's publicly available, so everybody can see it, but you have to know the URL. It's kind of, I've only been, not everybody knows this site. This is more of a sort of a semi-public, project work page. So it's not sort of a highly tuned, page for the general public.
Yeah, that's understandable. And this you created through Google Plus?
This is created through Google Sites. So Google Sites allows you to create free websites very quickly.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's a great thing. If you just type in, Google Sites, it'll take you to the info on this. And then you can also, you'll be able to go in. There's a lot of other tools. You can add images. So upload images. I don't know if I have any image here. That's my hard drive. Yeah, I don't have any handy image. But you can just, move through your directory tree and then select the images, that you want. Like, let me find something real quick. Empathy training. I don't know if we have any. Oh, okay, there's one. I just grabbed that. You grab it. It kind of uploads to the site. Takes a minute. You just click OK. And then you can set the size. So this is just a very basic tool, and it's just good for collaboration. So I wanted to, and then you just click the save, and then it saves. So
it's self-explanatory.
What's that?
It's self-explanatory.
It's self-explanatory, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty easy as long as you can have the permissions. And I'll add Peter and Celia to it, and so you can just go to the site and edit. So that was any questions about that? Just yeah.
How do you get to the site? Will you send a link, or do I have to?
It is this site. It's our general project site, which I usually include in every email.
Okay.
So it's and I'll put it in here. So this is the site when, I promote our project, I send the link to this site. Oh, and I made a short URL, so it's not as long and cumbersome. And when you go to the site, you'll see that this is it. It's j.mp/empathy training. So.
Can you share the screen and show us what it looks like?
Oh, I just put the link in. Yeah, sorry. I just put the link into it, and that's to the thing here. So we've already gone for about almost 45 minutes. So we want to get into our empathic listening, which is really the course. I don't want to overload us with, too much of the technical stuff. Just give a little bit of an intro here, and then any other technical questions about that site before we get into our chapters?
I don't have permission to add the comments.
Okay, so we can, that kind of stuff's going to take, longer, so we can kind of work on that later, kind of one-to-one.
Yeah.
And because once you get the permissions worked out, then it should be okay. But we want to get into the empathic listening part, because that's going to be a little time-consuming to do that. So let me see here. So we've got the technical summary. Okay, so we want to get into doing our empathic listening. Let's see, does somebody want to be timekeeper? We got the 5 minutes timekeeping. I see Bob looking like he's, okay, great. And so we wanted this. So this was an idea I had for the introduction of the chapter. We could have a little slideshow to just refresh everyone about what the chapter is about. So I created a slideshow, which I'd like to show here, just to kind of prime our memory before we start. And this is, so we're working on listening well. This is meeting 2, and our topic is chapter 3 and 4 that we're looking at. And let's see, is that coming across? Everybody seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have chapter 3 is, in a summary, is how accurate empathy works. And he starts with the quote, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply," Stephen Covey. He gives this model from Thomas Gordon, who I think, Celia, you know him well because you did a lot of his trainings for many years. So you're probably an expert on his methodologies. And, you know, he's saying, you know, it starts with meaning, and then you're sharing the spoken word, and then that spoken word gets to be the heard word, and then the meaning gets from the other person. And there's areas that can go wrong, you know, space 1, 2, and 3 can go wrong. That's where misinterpretations and problems, you know, the inaccurate empathy can happen. Something we can do is in our team is build on this. So I created my own model. So this is the accurate empathy model modified. So we have a little bit more personal look here, you know, with the face, the spoken word, heard word, and meaning. So, so we can kind of play with this concept too. The chapter 3, it says benefits of being listened to for a speaker was one of the topics I saw there. You know, a feeling of mattering, a feeling heard and understood. So that kind of brings up the question of what benefits have you experienced by being listened to? Another question he poses is what's the benefits of listening to others? That is for the listener. So by being a listener, it heads off misunderstandings, it deepens relationship. Over time, the listener grows emotionally, can see interconnectedness of life. And what benefits have you experienced by being a listener? And then chapter 4 summary, what most people really need is a good listening to, is the quote he starts with. He says, empathy is not just a skill or technique, it is a mindset, a heart set. So he's trying to make the distinction because it's not just a skill, but there's a sort of an awareness, a consciousness, a way of being, and sort of makes that. Assumptions behind empathic listening, it is valuable, creates better communications. Being willing to not be the center, it means that we're willing to not be the center of attention, and differences are valuable. So that was the overview. I thought that might help to just stimulate everybody. And does that, I'm seeing a yes from Celia. Was that helpful?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So with that being said, we're ready to go into for the next almost an hour. Into our empathic listening, went longer with all the rest of the stuff than I had hoped to. So who would like to start, and who would you like to speak to? And
Can I ask for clarification
Yeah.
or something?
Mhm.
So could we jump in all of these topics, or do we go one by one in another round?
We're totally open now. At least that's what we're trying. It's like it's an open, whatever is alive for you, whatever you have energy around. You know, what had meaning for you in these 2 chapters? And
Well, if nobody wants to start, I want to start.
okay.
Sure, please.
Who wants to listen?
Oh, I'll listen.
Okay, thank you, William. Well, I read the chapters, and what for me was very interesting and to see is that he says you to listen to understand, and for me it is not to listen to understand, it is to listen that they understand themselves, because otherwise I'm again focused on me. Do I understand well? Am I understanding it? Am I doing it good? No. If you can get your focus on that the other person understands themselves and says, yes, that is what I meant, then that is for me the core of empathic
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that in your practice of empathic listening, you're not listening to others for your own understanding, but you're listening so that through the process, they can get a greater understanding of themselves by going through the process, through the reflection.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Let me see. Oh yeah, an accurate empathy. Now I may think that he has to come up with that word because you kind of use the same wording as Gordon uses, but it is more the idea of precise listening, you know, because if you say accurate, then you mean you always hit in the target. And precise is more you try to get there, to be as precise as possible. And it also links to not judging. Also yourself as a listener.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if let me know. Rather than accurate listening, you were talking about precise listening. In other words, narrowing things down. And this is where I don't know whether I really got you or not. Because what I see is accurate listening is a broader brush, and it's sort of like black and white, whereas precise listening is making small course corrections. And I don't know if that's exactly what you meant.
No, that is not what I exactly meant.
Okay.
So that may need more going in depth, and what is then the difference? Give examples. You know, that would be that.
Okay, so if it's not a question of degree, then how is precise understanding different from accurate listening?
In accurate, I think there is more a label. It is more that it is correct. You do it correct.
Okay.
If it is precise, you're still trying, you're still helping, you are on a journey. That is for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you feel that accurate, I mean, it said is more of a judgment, and precise is more of a is much less of a judgment. In other words, we're on a path together, and yeah, there's going to be some back and forth, and we want to get it precise so we have a better understanding.
Yeah.
Does that capture the difference?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
All right. Let me see. I have, and then the main thing is also to get the underlying meaning. I think in the schedule it says meaning. I forgot. I don't see the schedule here. I've never seen that one. I think Gordon used the one. But to get the underlying meaning, what the person is really saying, that is what you want to get on the table. And the meaning is often two parts: the information and the feeling.
Okay. So you're saying that in your empathetic listening practice, your concise listening practice, you're looking for two aspects to try to get. One is the rational, the factual, but also it's the emotional tone and the feeling behind it. And then once you can then get a sense of both the rational and the emotional, you are making progress towards a more precise communication.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Oh yeah, he says the words that we hear, that we give back, are hindered by inattention, distance, distraction, hearing impairment, and native language. And I would want to add there also cultural language, meaning people who are very much in universities, they have a different way of speaking with each other than people who are just regular on the workforce. So that is a difference too.
Okay. So you're saying that another variable that one needs to account for is the cultural differences involved in possibly misapprehensions, so that you can again start to create a more precise meaning or communication.
And then he talks about values, the values that it has for us to listen, accurate, precisely, empathic. He says that it is to understand one's own experience, and then again, I would step away from the understanding. I would step more into we help each other to grow and to discover.
Okay. So again, when you're talking about the goal of understanding, again, seems to be more ego-centered, and you see a more shared sort of process that's involved, rather than just simply, once I understand, then I'm done. And it's not that. It's an ongoing thing. Although, you know, people have told me that before. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me see, I have a few more.
Okay.
You do need a willingness, openness to assumptions behind. Yeah, so also the understanding is then often matched with is that a truth or not? And that is a you against me thing, instead of let go of the truth. We have each our own truth, and can that be heard? Can that truth be heard? Let me see.
Just checking, Bob, you're keeping track of time, is that right?
Am I over it?
It's now 3:57.
No, it's like 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll do the rest the next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bob,
Thank
you're
you.
checking for 5-minute time blocks. So you just need to give a,
Okay.
I'll finish up the reflection though.
sorry to interrupt.
Sure. But the gist is not an endpoint, but a willingness to engage in a process. That meaning is not absolute, no truth is absolute, and always that we have to basically, embark from our own truth to try to journey to the other person's truth to figure out what we got here. You know, some melange of both of us.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay. Peter,
Yes,
will you listen to me?
of course.
Good. Okay. So, it's a lot. Well, you know, my reaction again, and a theme that I'm hearing, is both the emotional and the intellectual part. These are the two parts that a lot of times left out of our curriculums. You know, I was thinking about what Varsha said and talking about, you know, shared meaning or shared feeling. How do you get into empathy? And that's an entrance. And then I was kind of reflecting upon that might be a way when we design a course or the entry to the course that we help establish a feeling of safety. That's what, you know, Miller was talking about, that people have to feel safe, they have to feel relaxed in order to engage in this process.
Yeah,
So then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's so much I want to make sure I catch
No,
it.
I understand, and that's my fault too. Go ahead, Peter, please.
So you're, by listening to Varsha, you really connected with the fact that you enjoy both the intellectual and the emotional part of this work.
Mm-hmm.
And creating both an intellectual and an emotional safety would be a really great starting point to getting people inspired to do this if they were to come to a class.
Yes, correct. Thank you. And the only one slight difference, what I would say, is that yes, those emotional, intellectual are important to me, but I also found that theme, I found it in Varsha and Celia, and I'm sure, you know, others as well. I think we have that two aspects, the emotional curriculum and our intellectual curriculum. And I see that that other people kind of share that.
Am I hearing that you think that they're like separate and they're not together, and you're trying to find a way to put them together?
What I'm saying is that I guess being an old fart myself, that when I was like, you got the content of the class, right?
Yeah.
And the teacher said, do this, and I don't care how you feel, get this done. And so what we're trying to create is a curriculum that actually supports and engages the student to kind of come into it. And I think it has been missing in a lot of things in the past. I think every great curriculum or any great philosophy includes it and has. I don't think we invented it. So I think that, so I'm seeing that theme of having an emotional component and a didactic or an intellectual component as being integral as a thread through all of our things. And I see other people saying it. Sorry, I'm not brief.
I want to reflect it back.
Sure.
My good stuff. So, from your experience, you've seen all these different teachings where there is an intellectual component, right, and it's basically do as I say and you're going to get it. But your lived experience is the opposite of, well, we got to kind of figure this out. You've got to really apply it to your life and how you're going to use it as a living, breathing, emotional person. And you're kind of excited to see how to create that, and that you've seen the greats do that. You've seen them kind of, because that's what works. And you want this to work. So you're trying to capture that energy and use it for the work that we're doing here.
Great, Peter. Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Barsha, could you listen to me?
Of course, yes. Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, so.
Mystery revealed.
Huh?
Mystery revealed.
Okay, yes. I really like the line on page 10 where the writer points out that, and he says, the point here is that the accurate empathy involves finding out whether your understanding is accurate rather than merely assuming that it is. So I really enjoy that concept of finding out.
1 minute. Can you, 1 minute, sorry to interrupt, but can you just, chapter 10, but which line?
Oh, it's page 10.
Page 10, which paragraph, which line?
There's one single line, a second paragraph, a third, and the fourth paragraph in the middle. It's the italicized, the sentence with the italicized finding out in it.
Can you read that line again, please?
Yeah. The point here is that accurate empathy involves finding out whether your understanding is accurate rather than merely assuming that it is. So,
yes.
So I really like that process of helping people feel out how the experience of reflecting on what they're doing in the moment empowers them. Like slowing down a conversation and saying, hey, so I just told you this. Is this true? Or is this what you're saying? And, the writer even later on writes, you can't just do that all the time. You have to kind of become more advanced in it and saying, and like, I'm pulling out of it, really just respecting the talent of accurately reflecting on what people are saying and confirming it through either their body language or their answers or their willingness to talk with you. I'm always interested in rapport and how people develop rapport, particularly as a social worker. The question is, so how can I get it so that people are willing to speak with me even in difficult times? And I really like working with my clients to the point where even if they know that something's going on that, is a situation that typically wouldn't speak to other people about, that they would be inspired to speak to me because they trust me enough in that situation.
Okay. I'm going to try to reflect.
Yeah.
So you are talking about the process of reflection of how how people communicate and how people reflect back when they communicate, and that's what you are interested in, exploring the process. Is that what I heard?
Yes, but the particular component is the finding out component. That's what I really liked about this chapter. The idea that you can find out in the moment if you're being accurate, and how the author acknowledges you can't just say, hey, is this working for you? It's kind of that always implied thing that you have to carry forward of really gauging within your own body and someone else's body, is this effective?
Yes, that's so. What I hear you say is that you're interested in really deep listening, and this is what I have also been questioning. Deep listening means correctly perceiving that when two people are talking, whether both the people are perceiving correctly. Like, that's how the miscommunication happen, when perception is not right, and that's how you feel misunderstood. You feel misunderstood when you are not perceived correctly, right? That's what you are interested in exploring.
Yeah, I'm interested particularly because, despite all the training I've done in the past, I've just realized how much, the more I train in it, the more I realize how nuanced it is, particularly because now as a social worker, I work with a team of 68 clients, and every one of those 68 people, there's a different nuance that I know that I'm connecting authentically and transparently. And there are points where I'm just realizing they're not, and just being okay with that. Being okay with them, I'm just not willing to connect right now. It's like, all right, fine. I still respect you. I think, you deserve your life, and I'm not going to force it on you.
Yes, I hear you. I hear your pain, and this is exactly what I'm struggling with. What I hear you say is that working with so many people, like 68 people that you are connected with in your social service work, that when you talk to them, you witness that the perception is not common. There is no common, or there is no intersectionality between two people when you communicate, correct? That's what I heard. That's what I interpreted you say. And that's what a struggle is.
That's not quite getting it. It's more of just, I'm noticing the level of skill and the level of presence someone needs if they're choosing to do that. And really bringing that up front when you teach people, like, this is not something that you're just going to learn the skill and tomorrow you're going to be great at it. I do it all day, every day as a job, and still 10 years in, it's still something I have to practice and have to get more nuanced at. And that's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's what, like, I get what you're saying. Maybe I'm not able to express properly. You're talking about that people need more deeper nuances to communicate more effectively, accurately, to empathize. Am I getting there?
Yeah, it's kind of me reveling in just how do I teach people to really be inspired to keep doing that forward, to keep moving that forward.
So you're interested in inspiring people to help communicate more clearly, effectively, so that people understand each other. And you also see that people need more skill to arrive at that point.
Yeah, that's accurate. There's just I'm realizing and hearing it said back, it's also, just really valuing that skill, really valuing what it's done for me in my life and valuing what it could do for other people in their lives. And I'm just kind of sitting with that. I'm sitting with that energy of how good it is to have that skill and how good it is for other people to learn it, and just the level of a gift that it is. He speaks later on in the next chapter, like what a gift it is to have that sense of presence. I guess I'm just getting to that very indirectly.
So what I hear you say is that you're interested in educating people and also fostering awareness of the significance of empathy, correct?
A little bit more than the significance.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. I'm okay with finishing here, to be honest, so I'm good.
Let me switch on the light. It's getting dark. It's tough. Just give me a second.
Oh, sorry guys, I'm going to put on mute. My dogs are barking.
Peter, I'm sorry if I didn't make you feel that you were heard. I'm sorry, I tried.
I felt heard. I really appreciated hearing your feedback. It was very sweet. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, but I'm sorry. I was interested. Well, I am very much in sync with what.
Who are you speaking to?
Everybody, actually, because.
No, it's like you got to choose someone to speak to since we're doing the practicing.
I wanted to try out some activity which I would like everyone to do. Is that okay with hands?
We want to, at this time, we want to do the empathic listening. The core of the practice is to practice this empathic listening for, you know, at least an hour, because this is really kind of the core practice of the.
Okay. I have to open my.
It's chapters 3 and 4, right?
Yeah.
I have written down the question from chapter 3 and 4. Let me open. In chapter 4, let me talk because I just read chapter 4. In chapter 4, I have highlighted it's related to sharing and how to listen, like listen deeply what Celia was talking. So, and also.
Oh, who are you speaking to? It's Bob or I?
You.
Okay.
I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Okay, so I hear you're looking at chapter 4.
Yeah, I'm looking at chapter 4 and I've taken some points. What? This is the subpoints of the umbrella question. How do you know that you are understanding somebody, and what is understanding? Because when I was talking to my husband, I was talking about understanding, but he was struggling to really understand. Like he was saying, I understand you. But when I was hearing him, I said, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. And example I can say is he was struggling to understand relatability. And when I was going back and forth with him, I realized he doesn't understand the meaning of relatability. So then I had to explain him with different example what it means to relate. What is the meaning of relatability? Although he has been talking relatability, but I saw that he doesn't understand the crux of what it means to be relatability.
Okay, let me reflect back. That's a lot there. So what I hear is you're really wondering, what does it mean to understand someone? So you were talking about this word relatability, and your husband just didn't understand what you were meaning by relatability. He had different ideas of what it meant. And so you're just like wondering, what does it mean when somebody really understands you deeply?
Yeah, what it is to understand. What do you mean by understand? How do I know, or how does a person know that I understand him or he understands me? What is understanding?
So you really want to know, like, what is understanding? What does it mean to know what somebody else means?
Yes. So what is the process of understanding? And if we arrive at the point of understanding, I think we will touch empathy.
So if we can kind of have that experience of understanding, then we will touch what empathy is by seeing what understanding is.
Yes, and what is the concept of understanding?
And so you really want to understand the concept of understanding itself.
Yes. Yes, while I was reading this chapter 4, we exchange ideas, and like when we establish a rapport happens out of curious question. So what makes a person curious? So that the conversation and that rapport happens.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're wanting to have rapport, maybe between you and your husband. The rapport gets created by curiosity, but what creates curiosity?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're just kind of sitting with that question, Yes,
how to make a person curious so that the rapport and the conversation begins. I'm myself struggling with it when I go to a networking event, I don't know what to talk.
I think that was time. So,
Okay.
so I hear that you're kind of struggling yourself. Like if you go to a networking group, like what do you say? And you're just kind of like struggling. Kind of that's like a issue you're trying to deal with yourself. Is kind of what I get. Yeah. So thank you. I'll speak to Bob.
I'm listening.
Okay, and you can hit the clock. Yeah, what is it that's coming up for me is I like his model, starting with a model, you know, of even though it's a very simple model of how people relate, I think it can be the core of something, you know, that you can keep going deeper and deeper into creating a, you know, little model. So I kind of like that.
In chapter 3, you really like Miller's model from words to meaning, or from the speaker's meaning to the speaker's words, to the listener's hearing, to the listener's words and the listener's meaning. And there's connections that can be made, and it's often possible that the connections cannot be made.
Yeah, and that having that model there, and then I kind of added to the model by you know, putting some graphics in there. And so I think that model can be the core of sort of layering at different parts at different points in the lesson, that we have that basic model and can kind of add layers to that model.
So this model has depth to it. It has a dimensionality lesson. The more the model will mean to us, and the better we'll be at being empathic.
No, it's more that we can use this basic model and add layers to it. As far as an educational tool, as a way of creating a model in people's mind, like how empathy works, we can, you know, at different lessons, we can keep adding different layers to it.
So the basic model has different layers, which can be
we can add different layers.
And we can add different layers.
Yeah. And when we talk about meaning, you know, we can add layers of meaning, for example, and we can't make that model more graphic. So I guess that I see a lot of potential in having that basic model.
So the model has a great potential for adding layers of meaning.
Yeah.
And layers of understanding.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it. So I have a lot of ideas on how to do that. So, you know, I'm not going to share them here now, but I'm starting to play with it, and I'm enjoying, you know, kind of playing with that.
You're very intrigued with the model, and you're playing with it, and you have other ideas that you want to introduce at a later time. And it's a powerful symbol for you for the depth of empathic listening.
Oh, maybe I'll add another one, is that I changed it with faces, right? So there's faces there, which are just very bland faces. They're just the eyes and a straight mouth. So there's kind of no emotion, you know, not a lot of show, you know, it's very deadpan. So we can add emotion to those faces, and that will convey, that will convey the feelings. There's ways that we can convey more feelings. So I think that would be another kind of a level, you know, for the model.
Currently, the faces are nondescript, deadpan, and you see a great potential in adding drawings, enhancing the drawings so that they reflect more emotion and more depth in the model.
Yeah, and those emotions happen without even the words, right? Okay, so the words, it goes into the words and it goes across, but you can even get rid of the words and just be communicating with those feelings, those, you know, facial feelings. So there's a communication that happens there.
So facial expressions themselves are communicators without words. And if you're accurate in interpreting that, you have a great power of communication.
I didn't say communication, but yeah, I'd like to, that's not quite it, but it's close enough. So with that, I feel heard.
Okay. Celia, will you please listen to me?
Yes, definitely. I don't know why I didn't appear. I'm not appearing. I don't know why.
I see you.
Yeah, I see you.
There is an arrow mark. You have to click the arrow mark so the list will go up and down.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I will listen to you, Bob.
The most important phrase is in chapter 4, the willingness to suspend self-centeredness. And I know that I spent a good part of 60 years and plus trying to be self-centered, and I'm really good at it. And Miller says, knock it off. We're trying to suspend self-centeredness and focus on other-centeredness.
Yeah, so one of the sentences that really struck you was that he talks about letting go of the self-centeredness, and that you have to suspend it even. So, and that is like opposite of what you have done until now.
That's exactly right. Thank you. The other big 3 checkpoint was empathic understanding involves a genuine interest in and curiosity about the experience of others. And I know that when people are listening to me and are curious and are interested in me, it's such an affirmation when I can be energized by that. And when I can do that for others, that's a great, great joy.
And you have experienced already the joy that once you can be something, someone for another person, that I missed the first part here.
I think you got it.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And the last thing that I want to talk about is in chapter 3, accurate empathy opens your awareness of both the diversity and the interconnectedness of human beings. There's a diversity and there's a connectedness, and empathy is the key to that dual dimensionality of one world community.
Right. So empathy is one of the keystones, actually, to make it happen, that we are a oneness and that we feel everybody is connected and actually in big one.
Yes, yes.
Together.
Fully heard. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's one round.
All right.
Okay, we want to go at least 2 rounds, if not
Okay.
3. So, Celia, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, why don't you listen to me?
Okay, I'll listen.
Okay. Let me see. What was again? I was not saying necessarily. Oh yeah. He talks also about respect. That's also something that I wanted to mention. In my view, respect is not per se a tool to do, but it's more an outcome, and more that is what you feel afterwards. You feel the respect for a person afterwards, instead of that you say, okay, I'm going to respect you, whatever you say. It's more because you listen, you will feel it afterwards.
So you're not quite agreeing with him, what he's saying. You're saying that from your experience, that respect is not something you do sort of before, it's something that's an outcome of the relationship, of something happening.
Yes, and that it feels really a deep respect. And even if you disagree on points, you still can feel a respect. And once you experience that, that's like heaven. Yeah.
So there's sort of a deep respect can happen, and if you experience it, it sounds like if you're the recipient of it, that there's something I didn't quite understand. That it feels good, or there was something I didn't quite get.
Yeah, when the deep respect for someone, and especially when you have a contradictory issues, when you do not agree with each other, and you use the listening to each other, then you come to deeper layers, and those deeper layers actually let you feel the respect for each other.
Okay, so when you're having some kind of a contentious issue that you're talking about, and then you start seeing the deeper layers of the issue, that sort of the awareness of those deeper issues kind of creates this sense of respect for.
Right. And I think out of that, that huge feeling of oneness and that we are all in this big soup together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you come to those deeper layers, and then you feel that sense of respect, and there's also this sense of a oneness, with seeing the oneness of everyone, or at least the person you're talking with.
Yes, and I think he really means that, and it's really nice to read that. Let me see. Compassion, the more you understand, the more you long to lighten. So we have a need a wish to do good, and he mentioned that under the word compassion. You know, I had an example. I listened to the Buddhist talk here in downtown, and one of the translators dropped his pen, and I quickly got up and handed him. No, actually, he didn't want that pen. He saw I didn't write, so I gave him my pen. I went up and gave him my pen. I stooped down, and that is the wish of doing good is so deep embedded in us, and if we can acknowledge that, and otherwise I would be afraid of doing that. You know, if I can acknowledge that I have a wish to do good, then I can do it. I can do that compassion action.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just knowing that doing good is just a basic human quality that allows you sort of space to do good. And the example you gave was that someone dropped their pen, the Buddhist teacher, and you kind of wanted to do good by giving him your pen, and that was an example of that experience.
Yes, and if I would not have acknowledged that I want to do good, then I would be scared, like, who do they think I am, you know? I see. What do other people think of me? Mm-hmm. You know, once you understand you are a human being that has the innate quality of wanting to do good, then there's way more possible.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing that action. You could have been afraid to, speak to this, to bring the pen to this, big teacher, but you knew that all you're wanting to do is do good, can be contributing, and that's part of human nature. So you did it, and you didn't have any fear because you're just coming from that place, that basic human quality of wanting to do good.
Yes, and I liked it that he mentioned it in his book, even though he still focuses on the word understanding, which I would love to just throw it out.
Yeah. So you'd like to really change his book. It's like get rid of, change respect, change understanding. There's a bunch of things you'd really change in his book. Yes, I think that was the time too. That was the.
Yeah, thank you.
So you'll come around again. So I'll speak to Peter.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Okay, let's see what comes up. Yes, I had written that down in the slideshow about the benefits of listening. So there's these benefits that come from from being listened to, as well as benefits of being the speaker. So that whole aspect of the benefits and all what that means is something I've been thinking about.
Could I reflect back?
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah, so in reading the book, you've realized that not only are there benefits for the people that are heard, but for the hearer as well. So for yourself, there's an actual benefit for doing this type of work.
Yeah, and that's what he mentions, and I see that as the benefits of this, both listening and the speaking for the speaker. That I think in terms of marketing, I guess, how do we market empathy? How do we? And so I've been, gathering all these benefits and, to, show people what the benefits are. from sort of a marketing kind of a point of view, and just kind of thinking about that. So I'd love to get everybody's ideas about benefits.
So what I'm hearing you say, and kind of what I'm seeing in your face, is this kind of curiosity to how do you market this, and how do you get people inspired and like revved up, ready to participate and to do this thing that you see the benefits of. It's like, how are they going to see the benefits of being successful in this, just like you do?
Yeah, is it going to be kind of gathering testimonials, right? These are my empathy testimonials. Like I grew up in a church, religious church, evangelical church, and people would give their testimony, right? You get up in the front of the church, you say, "This is my testimony why God is so important to me," or what my experience was. So it seems like we need, on one hand, those testimonials can be beneficial for inspiring people.
Yeah, so you're just looking at that one strategy from your childhood of testimonies, and the fact that people have expressed how inspired they were by that one way of being, and you're curious if that would work in the same way with what we're doing here.
Yeah, but I wonder if that can just be maybe might not be so effective, because I put a whole list of the benefits of doing empathy circles, and it didn't seem to have a lot of effect. So it seems like there's something else needed. I think maybe it's like storytelling, or something maybe deeper storytelling, or something else that's needed to really really move people, and I don't know, some actors, having an empathy story. I don't know. It's like something even to be more powerful.
But it seems like you're stuck with what's missing here almost. Like,
yeah.
What is that last nugget? Like, what's gonna activate the mechanism? Almost like where's the key to start the engine? Almost like, where is it?
Yeah, what is it that's going to get people excited about this? And I think it's going to be the experience, right? It's like when you have the experience, and I've heard that a lot, like people going to like empathy or NBC or whatever trainings, and they go and they had an experience of being heard, and they hadn't been heard that way before. And it's like, hey, this is really good. I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to doing trainings, or whatever. And I hear a lot of those kind of stories. So it's like, maybe it's the experience itself, and having a deep, meaningful experience, and which gives me the idea, maybe we could have like a group listening, that a person for like 3 hours, they just get heard by a group of people, like this super deep dive of, supportive listening, like an empathy circle. You get the center for just 3 hours, and you get this total peak experience or something like that.
You're so inspired by hearing these stories where people were heard in some magical way, that it was so inherent that the switch flipped, and you're trying to figure out different ways to show that, because it's the truth. It's the truth for you. When you see all these people talk about this, you say, this is the truth, and how do I show it in a way that's entertaining to everyone, or inspiring to everyone, so that they come and join me in doing this work.
It's a little bit, yeah, it's okay, it's the time. I feel heard. Thank you.
All right. For me, let's see, who's up? Bob, can you hear me?
I'm listening.
Thank you. I'm reading just the very last lines, because we've been kind of focusing on them. The willingness to see through another's eyes, suspend self-centeredness, to receive respectfully what they have to offer, and desire their well-being. These habits of mind and heart that underlie and motivate empathic listening.
So I hear you saying that it's a heart skill, it's a mind skill to suspend self-centeredness, to be totally involved in the other, and to be accurately reflecting what the other is saying. And you can say that back to that person, and there is a tremendous gift for both in that.
The thing is that what I'm actually connecting with, that's the line, that's the last paragraph of the chapter of the book. I'm connecting actually with how much, for me, I'm realizing how much I did that in the past, Like really, that was the main strategy that I learned to be a therapist, learned to be a social worker. I've been very successful with that. But there's a part of me that's almost curious about the opposite end. You know, the opposite end, you know, so I'm not, you know, maybe it's just the phase, but I'm not so interested in suspending my lack of self-centeredness. You know, I'm not so interested rather in having no self-centeredness. There's a part of me that wants to be more self-centered, I guess, in a sense of self-care or self-love or something. And I'm finding it hard to balance the two, you know?
So as you read this last paragraph of the chapter, you're saying there's a negativity to that. And you say, I want to be self-centered because there's a payoff in the involvement.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, from years and years of learning how to not be self-centered, I've realized that I need a bit more. I need the balance. I need that yin and yang almost of like, hey, I matter too. And it's just,
so the yin and yang of self-centered and non-self-centered, they both matter.
Yes, yeah, and particularly to empathy, because if you're not taking care of yourself in some basic ways, then you're not able to be empathetic. You're not able to hold other people as meaning something if you don't see yourself as meaning something as well. I believe that.
So you need to be affirmed in the self-centeredness and the non-self-centeredness seemingly at the same time.
The word affirm doesn't quite match. It's almost like the truth of it, like the lived experience of being the practitioner of empathy. That being I'm just reveling in the level of self-care needed to take care of other people.
It's not an affirmation. It's a self-care acknowledgement and awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And just realizing that, you know, how do you help people understand that right when they're starting to learn about empathy? Because in the book, they're saying how it's a gift to you as well. And realizing that, you know, I focus so much on giving that gift away, I never practiced giving the gift to myself or reveling in the gift when it came to me.
So you're saying that empathy is a gift to another, and it is also a gift to oneself, where both recipient and giver have this joy of being involved in the two-way conversation.
That and I'm really inspired to see how can I accept that gift better, because I see that as a way of sustaining myself.
So how can you receive that gift better?
Yeah, and help people receive that gift better.
And how other people can receive the gift, both yourself and others.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm just kind of sitting and thinking of how much energy we need to do this type of work, you know, and that's one of the things that might scare people away, particularly hearing Edwin, you know, he wants to activate this, like, you know, I'm imagining like a nuclear facility of energy around this, and just what could be pushing people away? Like what could be stopping them from activating that for themselves as well?
So when people receive it and that gift is activated, there's a payoff both ways. And it sounds a little different than what Edwin was saying about this marketing and this 3-hour immersion. There's a one-on-one gift and reception that's really important to you.
More of just realizing that my experience is that a lot of people are even scared of going through the process of finding that out, and just being curious about how to assure them it's a safe and useful practice.
So you want to assure people that it's a safe and beautiful practice.
Sure, yeah. I feel heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Varsha, would you please listen to me?
Yes.
Hearing Edwin talk about the 3-hour immersion listening, and hearing Peter talk about the mutuality of gift and reception, there's a lot of joy in this. And for me at the moment, I need to focus on the non-self-centeredness so that I can better appreciate the other-centeredness And at some point, I'm sure the joy of Edwin and Peter will come back to me in spades.
Okay, so you're reflecting, you're seeing two sides of the same coin, where Peter and Edwin is, they are expressing the joy of how joyful, they are imagining how joyful it would be sharing the knowledge and experience of empathy with others. And you are on the other side of a coin, who is wanting to be not self-centered.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And as each of us goes deeper into giving and deeper into receiving, and the mutuality deepens, I think we're onto some real gold mine stuff here.
So you see that you're going to discover a treasure as and when you keep discovering, as and when you discover the empathy of giving, of giving and receiving and sharing. Did I?
Exactly right. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Oh. So who do I speak?
To someone that hasn't spoken yet, that's Bill and...
I can speak to Celia because there is a lot of commonality. Yes, I'm just summarizing. I relate to Celia 100%. Celia, where are you?
Do you hear me? I don't see myself, but
scroll it down. Yeah, scroll it down. Yes, Celia. 1 minute. I'm just taking out the points. You were talking about respect. And respect is one other thing that I'm exploring right now in my personal life, because I'm myself struggling with it. And I have discovered, but I want to, I'm just taking that into action, what I discovered about respect.
Okay, so you really want to zoom more into respect, and it's also a big issue or topic in your life now that you want to know more about.
I have discovered what respect is, and I'm taking that into action.
Okay, so you already know what it is, respect.
Yes, and I agree to you 100%. Where yes, you got to go and read, see my blog. I can email you Varsha's Voice. In that there is some connection of human connection where you talk. So I had this realization, like we all human beings are of same race. So why do we feel separate from one another? And also I came to realization that respect is something you should do, you must do, whether you like it or no. But that can only come when you really realize that we all human beings are one.
Yeah, so that actually only the respect can show and can be felt even when we really know and feel that we are one.
Yes.
And that's something that you want to, that is what you discovered also.
Yes, and in my personal experience also, I have experienced that people give respect as an outcome of something. Like, for example, if I'm a doctor, if I'm a surgeon, so I have more respect. If I would be a poor person or a beggar, then people will not respect me, you know?
Right. It has to do with the outcome and how a person
Yes.
like what status is. And
yes.
That is not how we should see it.
Yes. And also, Edwin, you were talking about that facial expression and all. Yes. there is an app. There is an app for it. Which is that book that I was reading about that actor, Alda. So he mentioned that there is an app of reading emotion. So we have to teach people how to read emotions so that people can start empathizing with others' emotion. So there is an app. I myself want to discover that app so that I can include in my curriculum. And sorry, I'm long. In Bharatanatyam, we have this whole thing of facial expression, like which I want to do activity today. So we will do that activity. Yeah.
So yeah, you know there is an app, and you are really hungry to find it and to read what the expression of the face means, and you have that example, and you have that exercise that you want to do with all of us, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I feel heard.
Okay.
I feel same page with you. I empathize with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Let me see who has not listened to me.
I can't hear you. Celia, I can't hear you.
No, I was just mumbling. Peter, do you want to listen?
I think Bill hasn't had the second turn yet. I think he's the last one, right?
Yeah, but that's fine. See, you talked to me before, so I don't know what the...
Yeah, I talked Bill before.
Okay.
But is that okay? Yeah, we do it again.
No, that's fine with me.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can either way.
Bill.
So it's fine.
All right. Let me see. The self-centeredness that came really up, and I have in the beginning of the workbook that I hand out in my workshop, in my classes, has a little image of a sand kernel, and the sand kernel is 250 times enlarged. So I want to indeed tell people that that's my statement. Even though we look at this beautiful little sand kernels, they're all different. They have beautiful colors. We make this one beach, and though each kernel, each of us has specific qualities that has to be seen, that is so beautiful and so unique. And if we can acknowledge that, if we can see that we are by ourselves something really pretty and beautiful, then we can feel we can make this big beach together, you know, because we're all different. And it's also maybe thanks to that difference that we can make that beach.
Okay. And I wasn't quite sure. I think you said sand kernel, so like a grain of sand? Okay.
Yes, a grain of
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. So I got the metaphor. That's great. So essentially in your workshop, you show an expanded or magnified picture of one grain of sand, and each one is different, yet it all makes up sand as a collective. And so you seek to start to bridge the gap or the seeming paradox between the self and the collective.
Correct. But also how important it is that not only you will learn the skill of empathic listening, you will learn that, but it is also important to acknowledge, to listen to yourself, and to be, to get that acknowledgement for yourself, for your being.
Right. So, so in your teaching and also in the philosophy, self-love is perfectly accepted and encouraged as a way of also including, love for others.
Right, and that matches what Peter said. I think, where am I in this? Where am I in the equation? And I need to give myself attention too. Okay. And the other thing, so you matter. Relationship. Oh yeah. The other thing that I would want to mention is, when do we empathic listen? Do we do that all the time? No. To whom do we? Are we doing it? You know, that it has a time and a place to do it. So you do not need to all the time do it.
Okay, so you're questioning. So then you're looking for the greater place of empathic listening in the is a subset of all types of listening for various reasons, and so you're looking for the appropriate time and place and people to do it with. When is it most effective? When is it really called for?
Right, and I think that is one of the that would be a nice thing. I don't know how much William in his book goes in that specific area, but I think that would be one of the things that I would love to see in our little training, that we would make that, you know, it's not always appropriate to active listen or to listen empathic. Like if a child says, can you fix my tire? It is not in its place that I say, wow, you really would want to go for a ride, right? No, he just asks me something and I say yes or no, and I'm going to do it, right? So, yeah.
Right. So you also want to make sure that as we design the course, that we don't overemphasize or almost develop it into a religion, for lack of a better word. You know, we're doing it all the time. Yeah. So that we are listening to the underlying needs of the person, and sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Okay. I can do for that.
Can you repeat that last line, William?
It's a famous Sigmund Freud. And so in dreams, a lot of times anything that was phallic, like a cigar, represented a penis. And so he was asked about his own dream where he had a cigar. And of course, he couldn't admit that he was dreaming about his own penis or whatever. So he said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Essentially, and that's sort of...
Okay. On that happy note, the cigar is a cigar. We've got 8 minutes left, so we want to prepare for next week. We can't get everything in. You know, we want to be sure to get at least 2 rounds, if not more, of empathic listening in, and we just managed that. So
no, I didn't speak.
Oh, you didn't speak? Oh,
yeah.
A little exercise that you said maybe later, or does it take too long?
What I was going to suggest is, we're putting together exercises. If everybody writes up their exercise, we put it into the toolkit. And so before we do an exercise, you got to write it up and put it into the toolkit box. And then we can kind of have kind of stack the activities. And plus it gets everybody to write up their activity, and we've got a record of it that we can build on. So if we could do that. So are you okay? Did you want to speak, Bill? Do you want to say a little something? Just
very brief.
Yeah.
So I'll speak to you, Edwin. And
okay.
Okay. And in talking, I think there were 2 reactions I had. One was about the difference between self and others, and self-love, and integrating that to love in others. And I just wanted to say that I agree. I think we kind of, went down a good road with that. I think that we have to acknowledge ourselves as well as others. And those are then reinforcing. In other words, the better you feel about yourself, the more you have to give to others.
Mm-hmm. So there's the part, you're really saying the importance of having empathy for self and for others, or self-love and love for others. And it's really, having that mutual is a good path.
Right. And then the other thing that came in is that I was thinking about, well, how do we, chart progress? I mean, every good course has some form of assessment. And so I wanted to suggest to everybody that we have self-assessment. We don't have people outside judging what you are, but we would have rubrics. And we could develop rubrics, and people can self-assess on the rubric themselves. So for those who don't know, many of your teachers, a rubric is various things. So for instance, for an activity that is about practice, Did you practice it 1 time a week, 2 times a week, every day? Did you deepen the meaning in some way, or did you do something different? So I wanted to get the idea of a self-assessment, because also we're talking about self-honesty and self-trust, and you know whether you got it or not. And so we want to go ahead so that people kind of can, chart themselves, get honest feedback, but that they're not being judged by outsiders necessarily.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking at this, wanting to incorporate into the curriculum a sense of self-assessment. So you're not being judged for others, but you're having sort of a rubric of how you can assess your progress and where you are. And you're just kind of we'd like to incorporate that into the training.
Thanks. I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Okay. Well, that is exactly what the idea is here, is like that is that self-assessment rubric, or the activity, Varsha, that you would like to do, or any other activity, is, write them up as a activity. We'll put it in the toolkit, and we're starting to get a compilation of toolkits, and then we can sort of pull out one, and kind of stack which ones we implement. So that was the assignment for last week, was everybody to come up with an activity. I want to give kudos to myself and to Bob for having done it. And then Bill also kind of added something. I don't know if it was quite an activity, but you did send something that we did put in there. What?
There was an activity.
There was an activity, okay. So we get the acknowledgements there, but we want to refine those, and then, we can implement them and, kind of put them, have them kind of put them in the right, in a good spot. So with that was one thing. And then the other question is the meeting report. So Varsha is taking a real estate class. She's really kind of overwhelmed with that. She can kind of come to these meetings. She's got a whole bunch more. So it was like kind of a struggle to put that, together. So does somebody want to do that? I've been taking some notes. It would be nice if you're not going to do another one.
Can I send the picture? Can I just send the picture and email? I might have time this time because I'm a little ahead of my works and all, homework and all. So if I have energy, I'll put it. Otherwise, I'll send the picture. Okay. I understand my doctor's handwriting, but I will try and put.
Okay, we can always upload those pictures. And I'm going to be, the recording worked, no crash. So I'm going to be putting this online so somebody can actually go back and really get even deeper notes. So does anybody want to take that on as a project? We should maybe have, it's like Peter's violently shaking his head.
No. Personally, I don't work well in a class. I hated it in college where I'm talking and then I'm also taking notes. And it's a very stressful and I mean, not that I'm saying your idea is bad, but I'm just saying that what I need to do is I need to talk and listen and not write in. I will write notes and things like that from time to time, but not to be a note taker.
Okay. I will do it because tomorrow I have holiday, so I will send you the.
Okay, yeah, that's great then. If you feel comfortable with it,
I will do it. I have holiday.
Some people are really good at it and they enjoy it. So what the need is, I guess, is how do we document what we talked about so it becomes jumping off places. We can work with it for developing the curriculum. There's a lot of great ideas get generated, and how do we capture those? And but everybody's kind of has their different way of addressing it. So, okay, well, we've got that taken care of, and
we have 1 minute. Can I say something?
30 seconds.
Okay, I just want to reinforce Peter saying self and others. I did the research in movement studies. So I came to a conclusion. In human values, we say putting others first. I used to say that, but I deny this. I disagree after my research, because if you say an analogy of a circle, Circle starts from a point. From point, you extend and make it a radius. And when you rotate a radius, it becomes a circle. So take from the self, whatever is there in you, it reflects, projects outwards, which is a radius. And after it projects outwards, it spreads to the society or spreads in the surrounding. So
Okay, that's 1 minute. You're 1 minute. Sorry. I know what I'm hearing is you're in pain because you didn't fully get to flesh out your concept. So, but that you're starting with a self, and then you radiate out that self to others, is what I was hearing.
Center to the periphery, not periphery to the center. It's always start from point, then it becomes a line.
Mm-hmm. So it starts with the point, and then it goes a line out. So you just want to just a one word or a couple, 2 words like about the meeting. Just go around real quick in closing. Bill, do you want to?
Sure. Well, I feel that it very much continues in the dynamic of last meeting. I really liked it. I felt that I had a chance to share and hear some really good ideas.
Thank you, Peter.
Work begins.
Bob?
Unity in diversity.
Celia?
Perfect information and exchange with each other. I love this. Yeah.
And Varsha?
Activities.
Okay. I love the energy. So, okay, well, we'll see you next week, and it'll be chapter 5, just 1 chapter blocks. So, okay, well, great. Thank you.
Everybody.
I'm glad I came. I'm glad I attended the meeting.
I'm glad you came too, Varsha.